Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. At 4:15 a.m., Nicholas Grayson's security alarm screamed to life. Outside, strangers in reflective vests claimed his Texas ranch now belonged to the HOA. Forged documents, midnight barricades, and a fake law firm. Someone tried to steal his land. Big mistake. Grayson's not the rolling over type. The shrill chirp of my security system was the first thing that yanked me out of sleep. The clock on my nightstand glowed a dim green 4:15 a.m. as the house's motion sensors whispered warnings from the front gate. I swung my legs out of bed and padded across the hardwood to the server rack room. The hum of fans and drives instantly more comforting than any cup of coffee. Before I could even pull up the camera feed, my phone lit up and vibrated on the desk. The caller ID read HOA office. I almost laughed out loud. At 4 in the damn morning? I answered anyway. "This is Grayson." A polite but officious voice chirped back. "Good morning, Mr. Grayson. We've noticed the access gate on your driveway remains closed and locked. According to our schedule, you should have vacated the premises by close of business yesterday and surrendered keys for inspection. Our commission was unable to gain entry." For a second, I thought it was some kind of spam robocall. "Excuse me, vacated? What the hell are you talking about?" "You agreed to transfer the property to Vista Ridge HOA under the Voluntary Abandonment Program," the voice said with bureaucratic calm. "Ownership has been assumed by the association. We've sent you multiple notifications." I pinched the bridge of my nose, staring at the security monitor. Two figures in reflective vests milled at my gate, one of them setting up a red plastic barricade with a big HOA logo. "Lady," I said, "I haven't sold a damn thing. I didn't sign anything. And you sure as hell don't own my ranch." There was a pause. Then an edge of irritation crept into her tone. "We have documents of transfer on file. Perhaps you forgot." I hung up. Years as an investigator had taught me when a conversation was going nowhere. My fingers flew over the keyboard, pulling up my email inbox. Sure enough, 3 messages from a firm called Keller & Ames LLP sat there, each stamped with a high-priority flag. The first announced my voluntary relinquishment of the Grayson estate. The second confirmed automatic transfer of ownership through a municipal structural agreement. The third laid out a contract with Vista Ridge HOA for stewardship and maintenance. Each bore my signature in clumsy black digital ink. I opened the PDFs one by one, zooming in on the signatures, the seals, the letterheads. They were bad fakes, the kind a first-year paralegal might cook up on a hungover morning. My name was misspelled on one of the pages. The notary stamp belonged to a county that doesn't even border ours. And yet, someone had believed these enough to send goons to my gate before dawn. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The live feed from the cameras showed the 2 asset protection types pacing by the gate. They weren't local deputies, and they sure weren't my security detail. I flicked a switch to activate the floodlights, bathing them in harsh white light. One of them shielded his eyes and gestured angrily at the camera, mouthing something I couldn't hear. My phone buzzed again, this time with the security alert. Unauthorized vehicle parked at the end of the access road. I clicked through the camera angles until I found a silver SUV idling just off my driveway, its hazard lights blinking. On the fence post, a fresh sign had been bolted in place sometime during the night. "Property of Vista Ridge HOA, under management." My blood went cold. I reached into the safe beneath the desk, not for a gun, but for a thick folder of my actual deed, tax receipts, and the 1996 servitude agreement that guaranteed me unrestricted access to this driveway. I laid it all out on the desk, snapping photos with my phone. Then I opened a new secure folder on the server and started dragging in every piece of evidence: the emails, the PDFs, the camera footage. The hum of the drives was steady and low, like a predator's growl. Somebody in Vista Ridge had just tried to steal my house on paper while I slept, and now, at 4:15 in the morning, they were at my gate expecting me to roll over and hand it to them. Not on my watch. The road up to my gate was still slick with dew when I rolled out in the pickup at dawn. I'd barely had 2 hours of sleep, but adrenaline had done the work of coffee, and then some. As I crested the gravel rise, the full absurdity of what was unfolding hit me square in the chest. 2 men stood posted like mall cops out of their depth, matching yellow vests emblazoned with HOA asset protection stretched tight over paunchy torsos. One was pacing with a clipboard like he was waiting for an Amazon delivery. The other leaned against a folding barricade set up across my gate like it was a crime scene. Behind them, freshly zip-tied to my own fence, was a laminated sign with bold red print. Authorized transition in progress. Do not enter. I let the truck idle a moment, engine rumbling low. The remote in my hand blinked once as I tapped it, and the iron gate began to swing open with a familiar whine. The two guards snapped to attention. Whoa! Whoa! Sir, you can't drive in here. Clipboard guy stepped forward, holding up a palm like he was about to stop a moving freight train. This property is under administrative control, pending relocation. Please remain outside the perimeter. I leaned out the window, deadpan. Son, you're standing on my driveway. If you take 2 more steps backward, you'll be urinating on my front lawn. Sir, we have authority from Vista Ridge Homeowners Association to secure the premises pending property transfer. I cut the engine, stepped out of the truck, and walked around to the tailgate where I'd stashed a leather portfolio. Let me explain something real clear. I am Nicholas Grayson. I own this land. Here is the deed issued by Travis County. Here is the servitude agreement recorded in '96. Here are 10 years of paid property taxes. You want to explain to me again how you're securing your own damn imagination? The other guard, a taller, younger guy with a mustache he hadn't earned, shifted uncomfortably and muttered something to clipboard. That one stayed firm. Sir, we've been instructed not to allow any unauthorized access until the transition is certified by our legal team. Good, I said, reaching for my phone. Because in about 5 minutes, you'll be getting instructions from my legal team, and they come with badges. I called my attorney, Monica Barrett. She picked up on the first ring, voice calm as ever, even at 6 in the morning. I explained the situation in crisp detail, the signs, the guards, the lockout attempt. She didn't even curse, just said, document everything. I'm calling the sheriff and filing for an emergency injunction. By the time I hung up, I was already filming. I walked the perimeter of the gate with my phone, zooming in on the posted signage, the barricade, and the HOA logo that now adorned my own property, like some kind of hostile rebranding campaign. One of the guards tried to block the shot. You can't record us without consent. Actually, I said, I can. Texas is a one-party consent state, and when you trespass, I don't owe you privacy. I owe you evidence. The younger one looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The older guy was still puffed up with fake authority, standing there like a rent-a-cop version of General Patton. I ignored them and walked up the drive, leaving the truck parked behind me. They didn't follow. I think they sensed they'd already overstepped and were praying someone in a polo shirt and khakis would show up to save them. At the top of the hill, I scanned the ranch house. My house. Everything intact. But I didn't like the feeling crawling up my spine. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. Somebody had committed a crime. Forgery, false claims of ownership, illegal occupation attempt. And someone had paid those 2 jokers to enforce it, which meant they thought it would work. Inside, I opened the wall safe behind the cabinet in my study. I pulled out the certified documents, deed, title, recorded surveys, and spread them across my desk. Then I downloaded the gate camera footage, time-stamped from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. It showed the 2 guards arriving in a black Escalade, putting up the barricade, and zip-tying the signs. One of them had even posed for a selfie in front of the new HOA signage, like he was proud of a job well done. I sent the footage to Monica. 2 minutes later, she replied, "Perfect. Keep gathering. Sheriff en route. Also, I just found something." Her next message was a PDF, a letterhead from Keller and Ames LLP, the same firm that sent me the phony ownership documents, but this time it was filed in a totally different case, a foreclosure in San Antonio, also involving HOA seizure of property. The signature on that document? Identical to the one I had supposedly signed. Same tilt, same font weight, same drop shadow. Only problem? That San Antonio homeowner was a retired Navy vet who died in 2021. This wasn't just an HOA gone rogue. This was a template-based land grab. Back at the gate, I heard the rumble of tires. A sheriff's cruiser turned onto the gravel road. Lights off, but attitude on full. I walked out to meet him, documents in hand. The guards straightened up like school kids caught by the principal. "Morning, gentlemen," the deputy said, eyeing the barricade. "We got a call about possible unlawful detainment of private property." "Damn right you did," I said. "Let's take a walk." By the time the sheriff's deputy stepped foot on my land, the two clowns from HOA Asset Protection had morphed from rent-a-cops into meek interns caught with their hands in the petty cash drawer. Deputy Orozco was mid-50s, thick-mustached, and had the gait of a man who didn't like paperwork, but liked nonsense even less. He looked at the barricade, then at me, then at the guards, then back at the barricade. "Y'all want to explain what in the hell this is?" he asked, tilting his head like the signs might rearrange themselves into something less stupid if he stared hard enough. Clipboard guy cleared his throat. "Officer, this property is undergoing transition per legal agreements filed by Vista Ridge HOA and their attorneys." Orozco turned to me. "You sell the place, Grayson?" "Nope." I handed him the deed, the title, the servitude agreement. Still mine, still registered, still protected under Texas state law. What they've got is a pile of forgeries and a PowerPoint fantasy. He skimmed the paperwork, nodding. "And they entered your property, barricaded it, posted signs, attempted to deny access to the legal owner." Orozco exhaled through his nose like a bull lining up a charge. "All right." He turned to the guards. "Either of y'all got any documentation on this alleged transition? Something real? Not printed off a website that looks like it was made in 1996 by someone with a dial-up modem?" They exchanged a glance. The younger one, the one with the sad mustache, reached into a messenger bag and pulled out a manila folder. Inside was a single-page authorization for site control with the Vista Ridge HOA logo and the same fraudulent Keller and Ames LLP stamp I'd already traced. Orozco didn't even blink. "You know impersonating legal authority on private land's a felony, right?" he said calmly. "Sir, we were just told—" Yeah. Who told you? What's their name?" The clipboard man hesitated, eyes darting. "We're subcontractors. Our orders came from, the HOA management office." "Which is where?" "I don't have the address on me." "Convenient." Orozco folded the paper and pocketed it. "Until this is sorted, you're to vacate the premises immediately. If you set foot past that post again, you're getting cuffed." Am I understood? The younger guard looked like he wanted to melt into the gravel. The older one gave me a glare, like I'd personally insulted his ancestors, but he didn't argue. They backed their vehicle out slowly and drove off down the access road without another word. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Thanks, Deputy." Orozco nodded. "Keep this paper trail tight. You're lucky you caught it fast. I've seen messes like this end in courtrooms that take years to sort out." "Not my first rodeo," I said, shaking his hand. "Won't be my last either, apparently." Once he was gone, I headed back to the house. Monica had left me a voicemail in the meantime. "Nick, I've pulled some thread on this Keller and Ames thing. The firm isn't in the Texas State Bar Registry. Their listed address on the documents is a UPS mailbox out in Bastrop. And the notary listed on your property transfer died 2 years ago. We're officially in felony territory now. I'm drafting complaints for fraud, wire fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to defraud. Also, listen to this." There was a pause, then another voice came on the recording. Male, mid-30s maybe, nervous but articulate. "My name is Adam Penley. I was the office manager for Vista Ridge HOA until last month. I'm willing to make a sworn statement. The president, Karen Walsh, directed me to process what she called soft transitions, property acquisitions without purchase. She told us to assume control over homes that looked inactive and create documentation as needed to justify it. We used a template. She got it from her cousin who runs a shell firm out of Phoenix. I quit when I saw they were adding Nick Grayson to the list. I paused the message, my name, in a spreadsheet of victims. I sat at my desk and stared at my property layout pinned on the wall, 15 acres of Texas dirt, trees, and blood. My great-grandfather bought this land in the 20s. It had passed from hand to hand through our family, never mortgaged, never sold. And now a woman named Karen, armed with forged paperwork and delusions of empire, had decided it was hers because I kept quiet and didn't plant HOA-approved shrubs. I opened a new encrypted archive on the server and started compiling everything. PDFs from Keller and Ames, matching signature samples from other HOA seizures, time-stamped camera footage, screenshots from the fake HOA website, metadata traces from the forgeries, and now a recorded witness statement from an insider. I backed it all up 3 times, then synced it to my cloud vault, which mirrored to a RAID array in my law office downtown. I wasn't just planning to fight this in court. I was going to burn the scheme to the foundation and salt the ashes. I messaged Monica. Let's go nuclear. Time to call in the old favor from the DA. Within 10 minutes, I had a reply. Already on it. Also, Channel 5 just agreed to send a crew to document the ongoing illegal occupation attempt. Their anchor says it's the most Texas thing she's heard all week. Good. If HOA wanted to play games, I'd give them one that came with a primetime slot. By noon, that same day, I had more on my plate than most prosecutors handle in a month. My inbox was lighting up like a pinball machine. Monica had looped in a forensic document analyst. The DA's office had opened a preliminary fraud case, and Channel 5's van was already kicking up dust down my access road. I was standing by the gate when they arrived. A reporter in heels too high for gravel and a cameraman with a backpack full of cables. She introduced herself as Emily Tran and wasted no time. Mr. Grayson, we'd like to get footage of the signs, the guards, anything that's still here. Guards are gone, I said. But the evidence, it's all right where they left it. We filmed the laminated signs, the barricade, and the unauthorized property of Vista Ridge HOA labels zip-tied to my own fence posts. I explained how the HOA had tried to claim my land via forged documents, how they'd posted security at my gate in the dead of night, and how I'd traced their so-called law firm to a strip mall mailbox in Bastrop. Emily was a pro. She didn't flinch when I showed her the footage of the guards installing the signs at 3:42 a.m., or when I told her the notary stamp on the deed transfer belonged to a man buried in San Angelo. Her eyes lit up when I mentioned the insider, Adam Penley, and the spreadsheet of inactive homes the HOA was targeting. You're saying you weren't the only one? I nodded. At least 5 others before me. One was in assisted living. Another family was on vacation. HOA just moved in, changed locks, and claimed ownership. Did anyone fight back? Not in time. One guy sold afterward just to make the legal mess disappear. Another's still in court, draining his savings. She nodded, face like flint. We'll run the full piece by evening. While the crew packed up, I got a call from Monica. DA's on board. They're authorizing an emergency motion to freeze all transactions initiated by Vista Ridge HOA in the last 12 months. We'll get a court order to suspend their access to county filing systems by tomorrow. Good, because I'm about to drop another bomb. An hour later, I sat down with Adam Penley in a neutral location, an empty conference room in Monica's building downtown. He looked like a man with too much guilt and not enough sleep. Dressed business casual, nervous hands but eyes steady. He brought a flash drive. On it, an internal memo from Karen Walsh titled Quiet Integration Program, Q1 Expansion Plan. Property lists with risk ratings based on absenteeism, age of owners, maintenance records, email chains between Karen and her cousin Bryce, the one running Keller and Ames, detailing document templates, PDF toolkits titled Affidavit Generator, Notary Seal Templates, and abandonment forms, customizable. Karen's goal, Adam explained, was to expand the HOA boundaries unofficially, take over high-value lots along the perimeter, and fold them into Vista Ridge's tax base. She said it would boost HOA revenue and elevate community control. She didn't care about legality, said she'd tie people up in civil suits and outlast them. He rubbed his face. I stayed too long. The moment your name went on the list, I knew she'd overstepped. I couldn't let it happen. We recorded his statement. 2 hours of testimony, clear and methodical. Monica sat in with him, and afterward, we had it notarized and placed under seal. With that alone, Karen Walsh could be looking at conspiracy, forgery, attempted wire fraud, civil RICO violations, and accessory to multiple real estate crimes. If the DA played this right, she'd be swapping her HOA gavel for a pair of county-issue bracelets. As I left the building, my phone buzzed with a new message from my off-site server. A new file had been uploaded from my house's security cameras. Curious, I pulled it up. Timestamp, 11:07 a.m. While I'd been downtown, someone had parked a white Lexus SUV half a mile down the road from my gate. The camera's zoom caught a familiar platinum bob stepping out, holding her phone, pacing. Karen. She hadn't left town. She was circling, waiting, checking to see if the heat had passed. I smiled. Back at the ranch, I installed 2 more cameras, one hidden in the old birdhouse by the gate, another in the tree line. If she came back, she'd be filmed from 3 angles and tracked before she even hit the gravel. That evening, the story aired. The headline on Channel 5, HOA Land Seizure Scheme Exposed. Former prosecutor fights back. Footage rolled of me walking the perimeter, showing signs, documents, even the falsified signature overlays. They cut to clips from Penley's statement, blurred voice, altered pitch, then to Monica breaking down the charges. Emily stood in front of my gate as the sun dipped behind the hills, her voice crisp and clear. Tonight, Vista Ridge HOA faces mounting allegations of fraud and criminal conspiracy. And thanks to one homeowner's refusal to roll over, a statewide investigation may now be underway. I poured myself a drink as the credits rolled and texted Monica one word, checkmate. Her reply, not yet, but close. The next morning started before dawn. I was already reviewing Penley's files with Monica when my landline rang. Not the cell, but the hardwired backup I kept for emergencies. Caller ID, District Attorney's Office. Grayson, I answered. This is DA Celeste Roy. I've reviewed your materials. We're preparing a temporary injunction against Vista Ridge HOA to halt all operations tied to unauthorized property seizures. But there's more. We want you to come in, not as a victim, as a witness, possibly as a consultant. She didn't have to ask twice. By 9 a.m., I was in the county courthouse, seated in a closed-door session with the DA's task force, 3 assistant prosecutors, and 1 state investigator in a gray suit who looked like he ate real estate fraud for breakfast. They weren't just interested in Karen's actions. They suspected this quiet integration program might be part of a broader pattern, other HOAs across Texas using similar tactics, possibly sharing legal templates through back-channel forums, even paying off small-town registrars to look the other way during deed filings. I dropped everything I had. The footage, Penley's full testimony, fake document templates, the metadata trail from the forged PDFs. It was all admissible. Monica added legal context on how the abandonment statutes were misapplied and which filings violated property code. By the end of the meeting, the DA's office was drafting a warrant request for Karen Walsh's arrest. It wouldn't be immediate. They wanted her arrested during the upcoming HOA general meeting in front of witnesses, a show of force. They asked if I'd be willing to attend. Gladly, I said. Front row. Back home, things weren't quiet. Karen's cousin Bryce, the faux lawyer behind Keller and Ames Legal, had finally made contact, not with me, but with my neighbors. He began circulating a letter claiming I had violated structural community agreements, and Vista Ridge would be pursuing enforcement actions due to non-compliance. It was legal gibberish, but he attached photos of my front gate, my posted signs, and a digital map showing my property as part of Provisional Block C. That was new. I forwarded the whole mess to Monica, who traced the email back to a server in Tulsa, same as the law firm's domain. She drafted a cease and desist and prepared an emergency hearing motion to bar further communication with residents regarding my land. But the real twist came when a county clerk, someone I knew from my days in prosecution, called me off the record. Nick, did you know there was a second deed filed for your land 3 days ago? What? Another transfer. Different method. Claims you sold it privately to the HOA via LLC. Different notary. Same address in Bastrop. My stomach dropped. They were doubling down, layering fraudulent deeds to confuse the chain of title. Classic obfuscation. That move told me one thing. Karen was nervous and getting desperate. I spent the next 2 hours in my server room cross-referencing timestamps and emails. I pinged every last automated alert in my system. Motion detectors, cameras, even the satellite ping from the gate sensor. That's when I noticed something odd. A motion trigger from inside my tool barn at 2:13 a.m. the night before. No door alert, no camera movement. I suited up, grabbed my sidearm, and went out to check. The barn was locked, but the lock was different. They'd replaced my master lock with a similar-looking one. I opened it with bolt cutters and stepped inside. Flashlight sweeping through sawdust and stacked crates. Then I saw it. In the back corner, half buried under a pile of old tarps, was a small plastic tub. Inside, more signs, laminated, marked with Vista Ridge HOA logos. Future Community Garden, resident access only, construction pending. There were 6 of them, all brand new. They'd already prepped for full occupation of my acreage. Before any court ruling, before any sale, before even attempting to talk to me, they'd planned to swallow me whole. I loaded the bin into my truck, drove it straight to the sheriff's office, and logged it into evidence. It was the last piece Monica needed. Now, we had proof of intent, tools of the crime, and attempted execution, all physical. That evening, a plain white envelope was left in my mailbox. No stamp, no address. Inside, a typed letter with one line. "You can't win. This land was always meant to be ours." No signature, just a stylized V at the bottom. The Vista Ridge logo, altered to look like a gavel. They thought that would scare me. It didn't. I slept that night with a round-chambered 3 external cameras active and 2 backups recording to cloud. Let them come. I was ready. The day of the HOA general meeting arrived like a storm I'd been tracking for weeks. Clear skies, but tension in the air so thick you could feel it humming through the gravel under my boots. I parked across the street from the Vista Ridge Community Center, my truck angled for a quick exit, just in case. Inside, the auditorium buzzed with the usual HOA chatter, retirees comparing sprinkler bills, younger couples sipping coffee out of Vista Ridge mugs, the occasional bored teen dragged along by a parent. They had no idea what was about to go down. I spotted Karen at the front, already in full queen bee mode, dressed in a lavender suit jacket, standing behind a projector and addressing the crowd like she was announcing a citywide initiative. And as you know, she was saying, "We've made great progress on the integration efforts. Several parcels have already transitioned, and next month," she clicked to a new slide, "we anticipate formalizing the acquisition of an adjacent estate which has been vacant for some time." That adjacent estate was me. I didn't interrupt, not yet. I scanned the room. Near the back wall, 2 sheriff's deputies stood casually, not in uniform but with badges clipped to their belts. One of them made eye contact with me and gave the slightest nod. Game time. I waited until Karen clicked to the next slide, which displayed a sanitized version of my property, rebranded on the map as Vista Meadow Expansion Zone. That was my cue. I stood up slowly and walked straight down the center aisle. Karen paused mid-sentence, her eyes locked on mine. "Mr. Grayson," she said, straining to keep her voice composed, "this meeting is for HOA members only." I kept walking. "You're trespassing. I'll ask you to leave, or I'll have you—" "You'll what?" I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "File another forged deed? Replace another lock? Send another fake lawyer to harass my neighbors?" The room fell dead silent, all eyes on her. Karen's jaw clenched. "I'm not here to argue," I said, turning to the crowd. "I'm here so you all know what this HOA's leadership has been doing in your name. Illegal acquisitions, forged contracts, targeting elderly homeowners and anyone who lives just outside your fence line. And I'm not the only one." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the folder. Hard copies of the fake contracts, the falsified deed, even the footage of HOA security posting signs on my land. I held them up like a preacher with a Bible. Karen stammered, "That information is stolen. He's violating a court." "No court ever ruled in your favor," I snapped, "because no court ever heard it. You didn't go through the courts. You went through fake firms, backdoor filings, and intimidation." Then the deputy stepped forward. "Karen Walsh," he said, voice steady, "you're under arrest for property fraud, document forgery, impersonation of legal authority, and conspiracy to commit unlawful seizure." He didn't need to say it twice. 2 officers moved in, cuffed her at the podium. The whole room gasped. Some stunned, some whispering, "I knew it." Others just shocked into silence. She screamed, "This is a mistake. I was following protocol. He was supposed to leave." They escorted her out through the front, cameras rolling. Not just mine, but from 3 local news crews I'd tipped off earlier that morning. The footage would be on every local station by dinner time. I stayed behind just long enough to hand out a few printed summaries to residents, the ones with real questions, the ones realizing they'd been used. On my way out, a young woman chased me down in the parking lot. "My grandfather's one of the people they pushed into selling," she said. "He has Alzheimer's. They told him he owed them money." "Send me his address," I told her, "and give this to your family's lawyer." I handed her a copy of the injunctive order Monica had prepared, language tailor-made to reverse coercive HOA contracts based on fabricated debt. That night, my inbox blew up. 6 more people came forward. 2 others had documents suspiciously similar to mine. The district attorney's office confirmed the investigation was now considered a multi-property fraud case with statewide implications. Karen wasn't going home anytime soon. I poured a bourbon, watched the arrest footage again, and for the first time in a week, allowed myself a smile. But I knew better than to think it was over. The aftermath of Karen's arrest set off a chain reaction that nobody, especially the HOA board, was ready for. By the next morning, the story had hit every local outlet and was gaining traction across the state. HOA president arrested for fraud in land grab scheme, screamed one headline. Another showed her being hauled off in cuffs with the caption, "From power to prison." My phone didn't stop ringing for 3 straight days. Reporters, attorneys, angry homeowners, and a handful of stunned board members who claimed they had no idea what Karen had been orchestrating behind closed doors. A few even asked if I'd be willing to consult on how to rebuild trust. I told them the only trust I had was in my lawyer and the sheriff's department. Speaking of lawyers, Monica and I were now neck-deep in litigation prep. The district judge had granted a temporary injunction dissolving the HOA's authority until a special administrator could audit all operations. My parcel and the others affected by Karen's scam were no longer under threat, but the legal cleanup was just beginning. Monica moved fast. She filed a civil suit against the Vista Ridge HOA for unlawful seizure, trespass, and defamation, and another against Karen personally for document forgery, emotional distress, and attempted grand larceny. We attached affidavits from 6 other victims, including the Alzheimer's patient's granddaughter, the vacationing couple who'd returned to find locks changed on their cabin, and a woman who'd nearly signed away her rights before her son stepped in. But Karen wasn't done causing problems. From jail, she'd somehow convinced a backup HOA board member, Paul Dempsey, a smug ex-insurance adjuster with delusions of competence, to issue a counterclaim. They alleged that I had trespassed on HOA grounds, damaged association property by removing one of their unauthorized signs, and incited hostility among residents. They were trying to flip the script. Unfortunately for them, I don't just have cameras, I have archives. I pulled a week's worth of video footage, security logs, and drone recordings showing every move Karen's team had made, installing signs, attempting to block my road, even rekeying my rear gate. Each file was time-stamped, geolocated, and stored redundantly across multiple secure drives. One particularly damning clip showed HOA security forcing a landscaping crew off my property after waving around forged documents. Monica grinned when she saw it. "This alone kills the trespassing claim and proves unauthorized occupation," she said. "We're going for punitive damages." Things got worse for the HOA when the county land assessor weighed in. Their records didn't just show that I owned my land. They proved no legal easements or transfers had ever been filed. In fact, the forged transfer Karen had used hadn't even passed through the recorder's office. It was a total fabrication notarized by someone who didn't exist. It was amateur hour, and we were prosecuting it like a federal case. Meanwhile, the temporary court-appointed receiver, an elderly but sharp-eyed lawyer named Thomas Merrow, began auditing the HOA's books. Within 48 hours, he discovered that over $60,000 had been funneled to legal advisory services that didn't exist. Same shell firm tied to Karen's cousin. There were also unapproved improvement fees that had been tacked onto certain homes with no record of board votes. The fraud ran deeper than anyone had suspected. One evening, just after sunset, I was working in my study when one of the motion alerts from the driveway pinged. I pulled up the live feed. 2 figures in hoodies trying to angle something under my mailbox camera. One of them carried a can of black spray paint. I didn't hesitate. I hit the siren remotely and flashed the floodlights. Both of them bolted like startled deer. I rewound the footage, clear enough for facial recognition. I handed it off to the sheriff the next morning. An hour later, I got a call. One of them was a former HOA volunteer, the other a maintenance contractor Karen had hired months ago. Even behind bars, she was still trying to intimidate me. Bad idea. The next day, I had a set of steel bollards installed along the perimeter. I upgraded the server's backup node to a secure off-site location and added plate reading cameras at the main turn-in from Vista Ridge. The gate sign now read, "Private Road, Owner Armed, Monitored, and Lawyered." HOA members could stew all they wanted. I wasn't going anywhere. The court date finally arrived on a muggy Thursday morning, the kind of Texas heat that makes the pavement shimmer like boiling oil. The courthouse was packed. Residents, reporters, former board members, and even a few HOA supporters who still believed Karen had been misunderstood. I walked in wearing a charcoal suit, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I knew exactly what this day meant. It was Judgment Day, for her, for the HOA, and for anyone who thought they could steal from someone like me and walk away unscathed. Karen had managed to post bail, of course. She sat at the defense table in a beige pantsuit, trying hard to look professional, but her body language screamed panic. Her attorney was a disheveled man named Stein, probably used to negotiating traffic tickets and petty thefts, not unraveling conspiracy and forgery on this scale. When the judge entered and took the bench, the room fell into the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. Monica was surgical. She began with the property deed, the original notarized and registered 20 years ago in my name. She walked the court through each layer of forgery: the fake transfer, the bogus legal firm, the made-up notary, the falsified mailing dates. Then she played the security footage, the guards blocking my driveway, the illegal sign installations, the attempted break-ins. By the time we got to the sworn affidavit from the whistleblower, the judge was visibly frowning. Then came the victims. One by one, they gave testimony. The elderly man in assisted living whose home had been quietly listed and sold. The couple who'd returned from vacation to find their locks changed and HOA letters posted on their door. A middle-aged woman who broke down crying as she described how Karen's enforcers tried to force her into signing a quitclaim deed she didn't understand. And then I took the stand. I didn't go in guns blazing. I told the truth, flat and clear. I explained the 4:15 a.m. call, the fake documents, the armed confrontation at my gate, the attempt to portray me as a trespasser on my own land. I explained that I had worked cases like this before, but I never thought I'd be the victim of one. She didn't just try to steal property, I said, my voice even. She tried to rewrite the facts. She weaponized paperwork, turned it into a crowbar, and thought I'd be too tired or too slow to fight back. She was wrong. Karen wouldn't even look at me. The prosecution requested maximum penalties. The civil court issued an immediate injunction forbidding the HOA from enforcing any rules, collecting dues, or making public statements pending full dissolution. The criminal court scheduled sentencing for Karen separately: fraud, falsification of public documents, conspiracy, and criminal trespass. 15 years was the minimum she faced. But it wasn't just about Karen anymore. The state attorney general's office announced an investigation into 5 other HOAs that had employed the same bogus structural transfer schemes. Suddenly, HOA reform wasn't just a local conversation, it was statewide news. Lawmakers started talking about oversight legislation. I found myself being asked to testify as an expert witness, not just as a victim. As for Vista Ridge HOA, it no longer exists. A state-appointed administrator handled the wind down, audited every dollar, and distributed restitution payments to victims. Homeowners got a choice: form a new voluntary neighborhood association or go independent. Most chose the latter. Karen's assets were seized. Her home was sold at auction. I bought one of her sofas and used it as firewood. Today, the gates to my land are thicker, smarter, and louder. There's a motion-triggered speaker system that plays an old Johnny Cash song when someone gets too close without authorization. The cameras feed directly into a law office cloud server. A new bronze plaque greets visitors. Grayson Ranch, private land since 2003. Trespassers will be litigated. And below that, intruders, smile. You're on evidence. I sleep just fine now, even at 4:15 in the morning.